If the Philadelphia Eagles were to pull off the seemingly improbable and acquire star defensive end Myles Garrett, the ripple effects across the NFL would be seismic. A defensive line featuring Garrett, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and an emerging cast of young, dynamic pass rushers would instantly transform Philadelphia into an unstoppable force in the trenches. The mere thought of that front four terrorizing opposing quarterbacks is enough to send shivers down the spine of offensive coordinators across the league. It's a move that aligns perfectly with the philosophy of Howie Roseman, the Eagles' mastermind general manager, who has long been known for his obsession with dominating both sides of the line of scrimmage. While he briefly broke tradition by prioritizing a running back, his heart remains in the trenches, and Philadelphia's defensive line is suddenly looking thinner than it has in years. With Josh Sweat and Milton Williams entering free agency, Brandon Graham likely heading into retirement, and Bryce Huff, one of their key rotational rushers, benched during the Super Bowl, the Eagles' once formidable defensive front is in need of reinforcements. The logic behind a move for Garrett is undeniable. The Eagles have been relatively conservative in their defensive spending, prioritizing the offensive side of the ball. But given the current financial structure, they could absorb Garrett's contract and still maintain their flexibility. And for Garrett, who has spent a career in Cleveland chasing postseason relevance, the appeal of joining a team that just dismantled the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl speaks for itself. This is a type of acquisition that Roseman has made before. When the right player becomes available, he's not afraid to break his own rules. He was historically hesitant to trade valuable draft capital for established stars until he pulled off the A.J. Brown trade, a move that proved to be a masterstroke. Now, with Garrett, Roseman would have a rare opportunity to acquire a four-time first-team All-Pro before he turns 30, something that hasn't happened in at least 4 decades. The biggest question, of course, is cost. The Browns have stated they have no interest in trading Garrett, but teams say a lot of things in public negotiations. The reality is that Cleveland's Super Bowl window has already slammed shut. They went all in, mortgaged their future for Deshaun Watson, and the gamble has not paid off. If anything, this is the perfect time for the Browns to pivot and recoup assets for a generational defensive talent rather than watch him waste his prime on a team stuck in neutral. The challenge for the Eagles and any potential suitor is determining just how high the price will go. Given Garrett's elite production and durability, every team with a championship ambition should be inquiring about his availability. The Detroit Lions, who believe they are a pass rusher away from becoming a Super Bowl favorite, would love to add him. The Washington Commanders, under new leadership, might be willing to outbid anyone to prevent a division rival from landing such a game-changing player. The Commanders' angle is fascinating. If the Eagles make a strong push for Garrett, does Washington feel compelled to counter? With a rookie quarterback likely to take over and a suspect offensive line, the last thing Washington wants is to face a defensive front featuring Garrett and Carter twice a year. While they have strength in the interior of their defensive line, their edge presence is lacking. Would they be willing to overpay simply to keep Garrett away from Philadelphia? The dilemma for Washington is that they are still in the early stages of a rebuild. They have the rare opportunity to construct a sustainable roster around a young quarterback on a rookie contract, a competitive advantage that should not be squandered. Going all in for Garrett could accelerate their timeline, but it could also mortgage their future in a way that prevents them from building a deep and balanced roster. There's also the question of whether Garrett is truly the missing piece for a team that still has several holes to fill. For the Eagles, the equation is much simpler. They are already built to compete for championships, and Garrett would immediately solidify their Super Bowl aspirations for the foreseeable future. Even if their offense regresses slightly, a dominant defensive line could be the ultimate equalizer. The price will be steep, likely multiple first-round picks, possibly more. But for a team like Philadelphia, that's a calculated risk worth taking. Would Roseman be willing to part with a premium young player like James Bradbury or even a key offensive weapon? That would be a tougher pill to swallow, but it's clear that this is a bet on sustained dominance. The broader context here is that defensive superstars of Garrett's caliber almost never become available. Quarterbacks occasionally hit the trade market, but elite pass rushers in their prime, virtually unheard of. The last comparable move might be the Khalil Mack trade, but even that was under different circumstances. When Jalen Ramsey was moved by the Rams, He fetched only a third-round pick and a backup tight end because of financial considerations. Garrett is different. He is still at the peak of his powers and has shown zero signs of decline. At the end of the day, this all comes down to whether Cleveland is willing to embrace reality and maximize Garrett's value while they still can. For the Eagles, it's a chance to push all their chips to the center of the table, solidify their dominance in the NFC, and create a defensive front that would go down as one of the most fearsome in league history. And for Washington, it's a gut-check moment. Do they let a division rival gain an overwhelming advantage? Or do they break the bank in a high-risk, high-reward gamble? One thing is certain. If Garrett is the market, the entire NFL will be watching.